What is up, Detroit Sports Nation? I am back after a week off, ready to talk baseball here on The Corner. Again, we've got the Tigers coming off of a series win. We have history being made, and the Detroit Tigers have a new vice president of baseball operations, and we're going to get to all of that today on The Corner. But before we do, I want to remind you that wherever you're at on social media, make sure that you are liking and subscribing at our YouTube page. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications, and any other social media that you're on, we are there and we are covering Detroit sports. So make sure that you are following, liking, subscribing, whatever the case may be, to Detroit Sports Nation for all of your Detroit sports news. Now, let's talk about this guy. And again, like Albert Pujols, we're going to get sick of talking about him, but I don't care because I love the storyline. Aaron Judge is making history. He has tied Babe Ruth for 60 home runs in a season. He is now one away from tying Roger Maris, and he's got a great opportunity at home against the Boston Red Sox this weekend to do so. And that puts him on pace to actually set the American League record for home runs. I say American League because we know that the National League record is 73, set by Barry Bonds. Regardless of whether you want to accept that or not, that is the number. But what is getting lost in all of this home run talk, and what is getting lost in everything that is going on around baseball, Albert Pujols and playoff chases and all of these different things, is the fact that Aaron Judge has hit 60 home runs, but he also potentially could win a triple crown. I understand that there is a huge debate between him and Shohei Ohtani for MVP. Yes, Ohtani is very valuable, and he is a unicorn by nature in the fact that he can throw the ball 100 miles per hour, hit the ball 450 feet. He's got over 30 home runs. He's got over 10 wins. Like, I get it, right? There's a ton of value in that. But if Aaron Judge doesn't win MVP this season, and it goes to Shohei Ohtani, then nobody is going to win MVP over Shohei Ohtani until he retires because of how valuable he is. And listen, value can be measured in a bunch of different ways, but don't we think that the value of Aaron Judge on a contender is a little bit better than the value of Ohtani on a cellar-dwelling Angels team? I would think so. I would think that it is. And so if I had an MVP vote, which I don't, but if I did, it would go to Aaron Judge because of the fact that this guy, he's raking in a contract year. Listen, we know that before the season he was offered 7 years, $213 million extension from the Yankees, but he bet on himself. Now, I was reading an article on Fangraphs that was talking about, is he really a $300 million player? And the Zips projections don't really favor him that well as far as his age goes. He's going to be 31 when the season starts next season. So the most value you're going to get for Aaron Judge is going to be somewhere in the 5-year range as far as the contract goes. Maybe around $270, $280 million is what the article suggested. But that could be money well spent, specifically when you're talking about a guy who has walked in 15.6% of his plate appearances this year. He struck out in 25%, but he's hitting .316 with a .419 on base and a .703 slugging. He's got a 210 weighted runs created, and he's a 10.5 WAR player. He leads the American League in all the Triple Crown categories. And it's going to be very interesting to see if the Yankees are actually going to pony up and pay him for a few more years, or if he's going to go to free agency, and what other teams are going to value in Aaron Judge. But the exciting thing is the fact that this man is on his way to setting a record. I broke down some numbers. He has, as far as plate appearances go, he hits a home run in every 10.6 plate appearances this season. He's got over 600 plate appearances, and he's hitting a home run just about every 10th at-bat, every 10th plate appearance. So if we factor in about 4 more plate appearances per game at 14 games, that puts him roughly at about 5 more home runs this season, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that's 65 home runs. It would be awesome if he could average about 1 per game and break Bonds' record, but that's out of the realm of possibility, so I don't even want to entertain that thought. But we're going to project him at about 65 home runs, which is what the numbers say, and it's going to be very interesting to watch him break this record, specifically against the Boston Red Sox at Yankee Stadium. I watched the game last night with the Yankees and the Pirates, and the Yankees rallied in the 8th to get Judge another at-bat, and Yankee Stadium was electric. And then a 4-pitch walk happened. But you could just see in Judge, there's something different about the way that he approaches the plate, because there was no chasing balls. There were some that were borderline close, but he was going to get his pitch and he was going to hit that pitch, and it was awesome to see. I'm rooting for him and Albert coming down the stretch with just about 14, 15 games left for both of them is going to be a very fun end of the season, not to mention the playoff races that are going on, where some of my predictions from a few weeks ago are not coming to fruition, but that's okay. That's okay. So we're going to move on from the leadoff here, but before we do that, I want to remind you about Gear Up Detroit. Make sure that you're checking out gearupdetroit.shop. You can use Corner 25 off to get 25% off your purchase. It's original swag from Detroit Sports Nation. Make sure that you are gearing up for this Lions season and obviously the upcoming Red Wings season, Pistons seasons, who made a big trade today. You can check that out on Detroit Sports Nation as well. Get your gear from gearupdetroit.shop because we have original swag that you are going to want to take part in. Corner, 25% off to get 25% off of your purchases there. The shirts are comfortable. The shirts get there fast. It's very convenient. So make sure you're heading over to that again, gearupdetroit.shop to get the latest original Detroit Sports Nation swag. Let's talk about the Detroit Tigers and the little spoiler that they played with the Baltimore Orioles. Now, the Baltimore Orioles are in the wild card chase. Currently, it was Toronto, Seattle, and Tampa Bay who have the final wild card spots right now, with the Baltimore Orioles, last I checked, about 4.5 behind. They could have been closer had they beat the Tigers, but they hadn't beat the Tigers until last night. In 9 straight games. The Tigers were 9-0 in the last 9 games against the Baltimore Orioles, which is incredible. You almost wish that you could play the Orioles every game if that's the case. But the Orioles are a better team than the Tigers, and their record indicates that. The Tigers this series, though, did phenomenal, right? On Monday, before the series started, Scott Harris is announced as the president of baseball operations, and the Tigers started winning. I call it the Scott Harris effect, right? Game 1, Alexander was sick, right? Not like dominant, but still was not allowing a hit through like 6 innings. And he was cruising. And the Tigers had 11 runs on 14 hits, but didn't hit a home run, which is incredible, right? Because they manufactured runs and they were able to just continue to keep the line moving, as they talk about on the broadcast all the time, and it was nice to see. Game 2, Joey Wentz, good again, 0 runs. Tigers scored 3 runs on 10 hits. Jimenez struggled a little bit and allowed the Orioles to kind of have a glimmer of hope, but Soto came in, shut the door. Baddoo hit a bomb to right center field. Kerry Carpenter hit a bomb to left center field, which is a great sign to see from Kerry Carpenter, hitting the ball to the left center field gap, the right center field. Like, those are the types of things that you want to see from these young guys. Baltimore then snapped that 0-9 losing streak to the Tigers by pouring on runs. Matt Manning gave up a career-high 5 walks. He did give up 5 runs with 3 of them earned on only 4 hits. Like, when you are giving up more runs than you give up hits, it's because you're putting too many people on base with free passes. And a lot of times you walk that leadoff hitter to an inning, extra pitches, like, those things are going to happen. There's a drop double play, things that need to be fixed. And listen, I mean, everybody right now, and we're going to talk about this at the end of the show in the peanut gallery, but every single player and coach is being evaluated very critically by the new president of baseball operations. I don't mean critically in a negative way. I'm saying we're putting on the thinking caps, we're putting on the analyzing glasses, and we are saying who's going to be on this team next year? Who's going to be part of this organization next year? So making plays is going to be huge, and we're going to get to Scott Harris here in a little bit. But listen, the Tigers won a series against the Orioles. That's good. You want to win series. I thought they were going to lose this series. I was wrong on that prediction. I'm okay being wrong on predictions like that because it meant that the Tigers won. However, the Tigers are sitting at 57-92 on the season. They're still projected to hit that 100 mark loss according to 538 as of my last check of it. Right now that puts them at 152 games, so there's 10 left if that's correct. No, that's not correct. It puts them at 149 games, so they have 13 left. Sorry, my math is a bit off there. But so 13 games. And I had them projected at 100 losses last week on the show. I'd like to be able to see them go, 6-7 over those 13, just get to 99 losses. But that's going to be dependent upon how they play against a team that's 12-4 on them on the season, being the Chicago White Sox. Okay, and look, it's not going to be easy. I predicted before the series with the Chicago White Sox last weekend, I said they had 6 games left with the White Sox. I think they split with them. Well, guess what? They're 1-2 against the White Sox in those 6 games so far, which means they need to go 2-1 in this series with the White Sox in Chicago. Can they do it? Yeah, they can, but it's going to be an uphill battle, and I'll tell you why. We're going to start with the pitching matchups, right? And here's the thing. Having seen each other only 7 days ago, you're going to get a lot of the same pitching matchups, not necessarily pitchers squaring off with one another, but you're going to see similar pitchers. They're going to see Lucas Giolito again. They're going to see Davis Martin again. And then they're going to see Dylan Cease, who they did not see last series. So my thinking is, and what I believe to be true, is if you want to win this series, you have to win Friday and Saturday night. So let's look, okay? Eduardo Rodriguez on Friday night at 8:10 is going to square off against Lucas Giolito. The last time Rodriguez faced the White Sox, he went 6 1/3 innings, gave up 3 earned runs, 7 Ks, but it was a no decision because that was the game that the Tigers almost had their second walk-off in a row, but ended up losing in the 11th inning. Lucas Giolito, he went 4 2/3 innings with 1 earned run in the no decision on Friday night when the Tigers did win in a walk-off. So these guys are familiar with these pitchers. They just saw them a week ago. Game 2 is going to be Saturday at 7:10. Drew Hutchinson is going to be facing off against Davis Martin. Now, Drew Hutchinson last Sunday only went 4 2/3 innings, gave up 6 earned runs, and the Tigers ended up losing 11-5. Davis Martin last Saturday night, I apologize, 6 innings, 1 earned run, no decision, and that was the game that the White Sox won in 11 innings when the Tigers could have walked them off in back-to-back games. So I know a lot of confusion there as far as like when these guys started, but the truth of the matter is the White Sox and the Tigers have seen the first 2 starters just 7 days ago, which is going to give them a familiarity and either some good juju to build on, right? Like you got to Lucas Giolito. He only pitched 4 2/3 innings, and you ended up in a situation where you could have won the game in extra innings, but you didn't. And then Davis Martin, he kind of shut you down a little bit, so hopefully you can make adjustments to him. But if you want to win this series, you have got to win this series Friday and Saturday because you are facing off against Dylan Cease on Sunday, and Dylan Cease, he's in the Cy Young, or was in the Cy Young conversation for reasons that are obvious. He is a dominant pitcher. Almost threw a no-hitter a couple weeks ago. Like very, very good. He's 14-7 on the year with a 2.13 ERA. If you want to get to the White Sox and you want to just completely end their season, because they were 5.5 out of the wild card as of last check, but they also have lost the last 2 games to the Cleveland Guardians pretty handily as well. You want to end your rival season? Go out and sweep this series. Going to be very, very, very difficult. But go out and sweep it. Look, they're 12-4 against us on the season. We've not played well against them. But if you want to win this series, you win Friday and Saturday night. You get to Lucas Giolito. You get to Davis Martin. They're close. The White Sox are close to a playoff spot, but they're like hanging on by a thread. You want to cut that thread entirely? Go play spoiler this weekend in Chicago. I hope you do. It'll be fantastic. You got to play clean baseball, though. You have to attack the strike zone. You have to command the strike zone as a hitter, and you have to field the baseball when it's put into play. Those things are going to be key for the Detroit Tigers to make a run at winning this series or potentially sweeping it. A sweep is icing on the cake. I'm not calling for a sweep. I'm not saying that if you don't sweep, it's not going to be a failure, but I did predict you to go 3-3 against the White Sox in the last 6 games. You need to go 3-3 against the White Sox. Play spoiler. When you're so far out of playoff contention, there's no better way for you to have meaning in your season than to ruin somebody else's season. Do the White Sox deserve to be in the playoffs? No, they really don't. Not with the way that they played this season. They should have ran away with the AL Central, and they chose not to. So go ruin their season, especially when you got newcomers on their team like Elvis Andrus saying that it's going to be an easy win a series ago. Yeah, shut them up. Elvis Andrus, the veteran guy that's bounced from the Athletics to the White Sox and actually got cut from a rebuilding Athletics team. Like, shut them up. Go spoil their season. Have meaning in these last 13 games of how many seasons can we ruin. You got the opportunity. You're going to play the Twins again. You're going to play Seattle. They're going to be a lock for the playoffs. So you're not really going to ruin, but you can put a bad taste in their mouth. But that is going to be key for the Detroit Tigers this weekend. Win Friday and Saturday, and then let Sunday happen. Whatever's going to happen when Tyler Alexander faces off against Dylan Cease. And we are going to wrap up the show talking about the man, Scott Harris, who was hired as the Detroit Tigers president of baseball operations on Monday, and it somewhat came out of left field. I mean, there were names tossed around, and his was not. But this is a name that Tiger fans should be excited about. Known as a rising star in the executive field for Major League Baseball. Only 35, 36 years old. And when you heard that press conference on Tuesday, you couldn't help but think, man, we have a competent guy at the helm. We have a guy that knows baseball. I mean, the guy literally used OPS Plus when he was talking to Jack and Shep on the broadcast. When's the last time you've ever heard a president of baseball operations in Detroit use advanced metrics? That should excite you, because that means that they are giving a very critical eye to the way that they evaluate players. Now, there were some things said in that press conference, and I do want to review them because I listened to it intently, knowing that I was going to be talking about it on this show. These are the things that were said in that press conference. Chris Ilitch said that Scott Harris has a tremendous desire to innovate. Scott said that he is going to focus on young talent and making sure that young talent, you get the most out of that young talent, and that this team commands a strike zone on both sides of the ball, because he said that the strike zone affects everything in the game of baseball, and he's correct. He also said that this was a challenge, but with challenge comes huge opportunity, which is awesome. But one of the best things I think that he said, this is not my team. He said, I'm going to be listening to the people who have been involved, and I'm going to listen more than I talk, which I personally like. You got 2 ears for a reason and 1 mouth. He's going to listen to those people that know the situation, that know the players, and he's going to then make his assessment based on how he would normally assess, but based on also what they say. But he said, this is not my team. This is Detroit's team. He said AJ and the guys are going to be in people's living rooms more often than some family members during the summers. And to me, that guy gets it. He's going to put a product on the field that the fans are going to be happy with. Now, is it going to happen in 2023? There's going to be moves made, because I love when he also said that, listen, we cannot be risk averse, and we're not going to chase what other people are doing because we won't do it as well. We have to innovate. We cannot be risk averse. Awesome. Because it seems like we've made a lot of safe and risk averse moves since 2017. Take a chance. Take calculated risk, because with risk comes reward. The other thing on this resume with Scott Harris is this. He's been around winners. Listen, I told you, you give a blank check to Theo Epstein to come run this team. Well, we didn't get Theo Epstein, which is okay. You know why? Because we got the guy that worked with Theo Epstein, that learned at the feet of Theo Epstein, because he was part of the Chicago Cubs organization since 2012. Saw them through the World Championship, and then went with Farhan Zaidi to the San Francisco Giants to be the GM while Zaidi was the president of baseball operations. And the Giants last year, 107 wins. Got veteran players and figured out how to develop them, how to get them better. I like that. But here's the thing. This guy is going to set a vision for this team, and you are either going to get in line with that vision or you are not going to be around the team. It's going to be very interesting. I will not be shocked if there are major moves that happen this offseason, and some that we maybe don't necessarily agree with. But again, let's trust the guy that is very competent in what he is doing. And I said it before in the show, and I'm going to say it again right now. His press conference should have put people on notice. Everybody in the organization right now should be on notice, including A.J. Hinch. Now, I don't think that him and A.J. Hinch are going to be, button heads and at odds. I think that they actually can probably meld their philosophies together, and it can be a very good relationship. But I'll tell you this, it doesn't seem like A.J. Hinch was involved in this process as much as we were led to believe that he was going to be involved in this process. But I'm telling you right now, every single player on that roster better be on notice. He's going to have a conversation with Miguel Cabrera, no doubt. Does Miguel Cabrera play next season? It's all going to be dependent upon Scott Harris. Here's the other thing, right? He said he's going to bring in a GM. So he's going to be the guy that runs the baseball, but it's going to be filtered through this GM. There's no timeline for that, but there will be a GM in place. And it's fun and it's exciting. And for the first time, it seems like there are competent leaders in charge of all of the Detroit sports teams. So much so that Steve Yzerman was even involved in the process of bringing Scott Harris to the Tigers. Does anybody know Detroit better than Steve Yzerman? Probably not. This is exciting. And if you are a Tigers fan, I'm going to tell you this. Sit back and watch it happen. Reserve your judgments for a little bit. This guy's young, this guy's innovative, and this guy has a track record. I'm going to trust what he says, and I'm going to trust what he plans to do, even if maybe I don't necessarily understand right away where he's going with it. I'm excited. Welcome to Detroit. Scott Harris, I am excited that you are here. I cannot wait to see what moves you make, including who you do not bring back on this team next year because of how much of a disaster 2022 was, which right? I mean, he kind of smirked when he talked about the Tigers farm system and said, I'm not really going to tell you what we and the Giants thought about the Tigers farm system, kind of tongue-in-cheek, right? Which means there's going to be changes. There's going to be development. The key is going to be development, and that is awesome. But not just developing. He said, we need to get young players, we need to develop those young players, and we need to get the most out of those young players and keep them around, which is big, which is what we talked about with the Atlanta Braves, right? The Atlanta Braves are doing that type of thing now. So it's going to be very interesting. I cannot wait for the season to end, not because I want baseball to be over, but because I want him to get to work. And I want to see what he's going to do to put a good product on the field in 2023. 3. That is going to do it for us here on the corner today. I am AJ Reilly. I want to remind you again to make sure that you are following Detroit Sports Nation on all of your social media platforms. Make sure you hit that bell on YouTube and click subscribe so that you can get updates when our latest content drops. I will be back on Monday to talk to you about this series with the White Sox and the upcoming series that week. And until then, as always, go Tigers.